Scene opens with dramatic, mysterious music and visuals of an old, abandoned ship on a vast, empty ocean. Have you ever heard of a ghost ship? Not the spooky kind from pirate legends, but a real-life vessel found floating adrift, completely deserted, with no sign of its crew. This isn't the plot of a horror movie. It's the true story of the Mary Celeste, one of history's most chilling and enduring maritime mysteries. On a cold December day in 1872, a Canadian brigantine was sailing through the Atlantic. Somewhere between the Azores and Portugal, its crew spotted a ship drifting erratically. It was a mess. Its sails were torn and flapping wildly in the wind. As they got closer, they hailed the ship. But there was no response, just the eerie sound of the wind and the creaking of the ship's timbers. The captain of the Dei Gratia, David Morehouse, recognized the vessel. It was the Mary Celeste. He knew its captain, Benjamin Briggs, and knew him to be a skilled and sober seaman. A feeling of dread must have washed over him. Something was terribly wrong. A boarding party was sent over. What they found was a scene frozen in time, yet utterly baffling. The ship was seaworthy, not taking on water. In the ship's galley, there was food on the plates, as if a meal had been interrupted. The crew's personal belongings, including their money and valuables, were untouched. Even the cargo 1,701 barrels of raw alcohol was mostly intact. In the captain's cabin, everything was in order. The ship's logbook was found, with a last entry dated 10 days prior. It recorded the ship's position and noted nothing unusual. The only things missing were the ship's single lifeboat, the chronometer, the sextant, and, most importantly, all 10 souls who had been on board. Captain Briggs, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and the 7 experienced crewmen. They had vanished without a trace. So, what happened? The mystery immediately captured the public's imagination, and theories began to fly. From the mundane to the utterly bizarre, people tried to piece together the final moments of the Mary Celeste's crew. Let's dive into some of the most popular theories. The first, and perhaps most sensational, was foul play. Piracy was an immediate suspect. After all, the seas in the 19th century could still be dangerous. But this theory quickly falls apart. Why would pirates leave behind the valuable cargo and the crew's personal effects? Pirates are in it for the loot. The scene on the Mary Celeste just didn't fit the pattern of a pirate attack. There were no signs of a struggle, no violence. It was too clean, too quiet. Another theory pointed fingers at the crew of the Dei Gratia itself, the very men who found the ship. The idea was that they had murdered everyone on the Mary Celeste to claim the salvage reward for the ship and its cargo. This suspicion was so strong that an official court of inquiry was held. However, after a thorough investigation, no evidence of wrongdoing was ever found. The crew of the Dei Gratia had their names cleared, but the suspicion lingered for years, tainting their discovery. Okay, so if it wasn't pirates and it wasn't a salvage scheme, what else could it be? People started looking for more creative explanations. Could it have been a mutiny? Perhaps the crew, fueled by the alcohol in the cargo hold, rose up against Captain Briggs. This seems unlikely. Captain Briggs had a reputation for being a fair and respected leader. The crew was hand-picked and known to be professional. Plus, again, there were no signs of a fight. A mutiny would have been messy. This is where the theories start to get really wild. Some people whispered about giant sea monsters, a colossal squid. Perhaps that wrapped its tentacles around the ship and plucked the crew off one by one. It's a thrilling image, straight out of a Jules Verne novel, but there's zero evidence to support it. No giant tentacle marks, no damage consistent with such an attack. Then came the supernatural and extraterrestrial theories. Ghosts? An alien abduction? A dimensional rift that swallowed the crew whole. These ideas are fantastic and make for great stories around a campfire, but they rely on belief, not evidence. For investigators and historians, the answer had to lie in something more grounded in reality. Which brings us to the most plausible, scientifically backed theory. It involves those barrels of alcohol in the cargo hold. Remember, this wasn't the kind of alcohol you drink. It was raw, industrial-grade alcohol, highly volatile. The theory goes like this. Some of the barrels might have leaked, creating a buildup of flammable vapor in the hold. Now, imagine a spark maybe from a metal tool striking something or some other friction. This could have caused a dramatic, but not destructive, vapor explosion. A huge burst of flame and pressure would have blown the main hatch cover off, followed by a terrifying roaring sound. Captain Briggs and his crew, fearing the entire ship was about to go up in a massive fireball, would have made a split-second decision. Abandon ship. Now, in their panic, they would have scrambled into the lifeboat, perhaps trailing a line back to the Mary Celeste, planning to wait at a safe distance to see if the ship would explode. But the open hatch would have quickly vented the fumes, and the fire, if there was one, would have extinguished itself just as quickly. The ship would have looked fine, but then, disaster strikes again. The rope connecting their small lifeboat to the massive Mary Celeste snaps, or maybe they never even secured a line in their haste. The wind picks up. The sails of the Mary Celeste catch it, and the ship begins to drift away from them, faster than they can row. They are left behind, in a tiny boat in the middle of the vast, unforgiving Atlantic Ocean. Their fate was sealed. This theory elegantly explains almost everything. It explains why they left in a hurry, abandoning their meal. It explains why they took the navigational instruments they knew they might be adrift for a while. It explains the lack of damage to the ship and the largely intact cargo. And it explains why no one was ever found. The ocean rarely gives up its dead. Over 150 years later, the story of the Mary Celeste continues to fascinate us. It's a perfect storm of mystery. A deserted ship, a vanished crew, and just enough clues to fuel endless speculation. It reminds us of the power and the mystery of the sea, and of how quickly a normal day can turn into an eternal enigma. We may never know for sure what happened to Captain Briggs, his family, and his crew, but their story has made the Mary Celeste the most famous ghost ship in history, forever sailing through the pages of maritime lore. What do you think happened? A freak accident, or something more sinister? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and do you forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next exploration into the unknown. See you next time. What topics should I cover? What questions do you have? Is there a project you'd love to see me? Sure thing. I'm all ears for your ideas and projects. What should I dive into next?